What if the thoughts you are having right now, the mood you woke up in this morning, or even your ability to handle stress today are not entirely your own? What if the narrative inside your head is partly being written by an invisible civilization living deep inside your body?
It sounds like pure science fiction. The idea that microscopic organisms could be pulling the levers of human consciousness goes against everything we are taught about free will and biology. But from a purely scientific standpoint, it is not fiction at all. We are carrying trillions of microorganisms inside us, and they have a direct, high-speed communication line straight to the brain.
It completely shatters the traditional view of human anatomy. We usually think of the gastrointestinal tract as just a mechanical tube. You put food in, it extracts energy, and that is the end of the story. But modern neuroscience is completely rewriting that narrative. We are no longer just looking at a digestive organ. We are looking at a second command center for human biology.
It is a massive paradigm shift in how we understand human performance. We are discovering that the gut is an incredibly complex, vibrant ecosystem. It is actively shaping our immune system, regulating our metabolism, and profoundly influencing our mental clarity and emotional stability. If you want to understand why your brain functions the way it does, you have to look down at the gut.
So today, we are diving deep into this hidden universe. We will explore how this microscopic ecosystem dictates our peak cognitive performance, why modern life is essentially waging a silent war against it, and how we can actually engineer our internal biology to build unbreakable mental resilience. Let's start with the sheer scale of this phenomenon. When people hear the word microbiome, they might just picture a few bacteria helping to break down a heavy lunch. But the reality is staggering, isn't it?
Staggering is exactly the right word. We are talking about trillions of individual microorganisms. We have bacteria, fungi, and viruses, all living in a highly structured, highly competitive, and collaborative environment inside the intestines. To put it in perspective, if you were to gather all the microbes in your gut and weigh them, they would weigh roughly as much as your brain.
That is absolutely wild. It is practically an invisible organ functioning inside us.
And it functions exactly like a vital organ. It synthesizes essential vitamins, it constantly trains and regulates our immune responses, and it produces metabolic signals that travel throughout the entire body. But the most fascinating part of this evolutionary story is that human biology did not just tolerate these microbes. Over millions of years, we actually evolved to outsource critical biological functions to them. We rely on them to survive. We are not biologically alone inside our own bodies. We are a walking, breathing ecosystem.
I love that perspective. It completely dismantles the illusion of the individual self. We walk around thinking of ourselves as a singular I, but biologically speaking, I is actually a we. It is a collaborative project.
Precisely. And when that collaboration breaks down, the entire system suffers.
Which brings us to how this ecosystem actually talks to the brain, because they are physically quite far apart. But there is a physical and chemical superhighway connecting our intestines directly to our skull, right?
Yes, the gut-brain axis. It is a continuous, bidirectional loop of communication. You have neural pathways, most notably the vagus nerve, which acts like a massive fiber optic cable. It transmits vast amounts of data between the gut and the brain in milliseconds. But the communication is not just electrical, it is chemical, immune, and hormonal too.
So what kind of messages are they sending? Because if my gut bacteria are constantly texting my brain, I really want to know what they are saying.
Often, they are sending highly potent mood-altering chemicals. For example, a massive percentage of the body's serotonin, the neurotransmitter we associate with happiness and well-being, is produced in the gut, and this production is heavily influenced by microbial activity. They also play a critical role in the pathways related to dopamine, which drives our motivation, and GABA, which is the primary neurotransmitter that helps our nervous system feel calm and relaxed.
Wait, just to be absolutely clear, the chemicals that dictate my daily motivation, my baseline happiness, and my ability to chill out after a stressful day, those are being manufactured or regulated by bacteria in my intestines?
A highly significant portion of them, yes. The microbes are producing the raw metabolites and chemical signals that literally tell your nervous system how to behave. This is why we can no longer separate mental performance from microbial performance. If your gut ecosystem is thriving, it sends continuous signals of safety, abundance, and stability up to the brain. Your mood naturally stabilizes, your cognitive focus sharpens.
That completely flips the script on mental health and cognitive enhancement. We spend so much time and money trying to hack our brains. We use nootropics, we drink endless cups of coffee, we try to force our minds to focus, but we might be completely ignoring the biological factory floor where the raw materials of our consciousness are actually built.
That is a brilliant analogy. And what happens when the factory floor goes on strike? Or worse, what happens when it catches fire? That is where we get into the deeply problematic territory of systemic inflammation.
Let's dig into that fire, because so many people today suffer from what we casually call brain fog. It is that heavy, sluggish feeling where you just cannot think clearly, your memory slips, and everything takes twice as much effort. Usually, people blame a lack of sleep or just working too hard. But you are saying the root cause of that mental fatigue might actually be down in the gut.
In a vast number of cases, absolutely. When the microbiome loses its diversity, when the beneficial bacteria die off and opportunistic inflammatory strains take over, the physical lining of the gut can become compromised. We call this condition intestinal permeability, though it is more commonly known as leaky gut.
It sounds like a breached castle wall.
That is exactly what it is. The intestinal barrier is supposed to be a highly selective security checkpoint. It keeps toxins, pathogens, and undigested food particles safely inside the digestive tract while letting nutrients pass through. But when the microbial ecosystem degrades, that barrier develops microscopic gaps. Unwanted particles slip through the wall and enter the bloodstream. The body's immune system spots them, panics, and launches an aggressive inflammatory attack.
And I am guessing that immune response does not just stay localized in the stomach.
No, it travels systemically. The immune system releases inflammatory cytokines, which are essentially chemical alarm bells. These cytokines travel through the blood and can actually cross the blood-brain barrier. When the brain detects this systemic inflammation, it alters its own function. It slows down neural processing to conserve energy. It disrupts the delicate balance of neurotransmitters we just talked about. The end result? You feel deeply fatigued, your mood swings, your motivation drops, and you get that classic impenetrable brain fog. You feel like you are trying to think through deep water.
It is incredibly humbling to realize that cognitive fatigue is often an immune response triggered by a microbial imbalance. It means that when you feel mentally exhausted, it might not be your brain that is tired. It might be your gut sounding a biological alarm.
Exactly. And the profound tragedy of our current era is that modern civilization is essentially an engine perfectly designed to destroy microbial diversity. We are living in an environment that is deeply hostile to our own internal ecosystem.
It really feels like we have traded our biological richness for modern convenience. What are the biggest culprits driving this destruction?
The list is unfortunately very long, but the standard modern diet is at the top. Ultra-processed foods are completely stripped of the complex fibers that our beneficial microbes need to survive. Instead, they are loaded with artificial emulsifiers, preservatives, and refined sugars that actively harm the good bacteria while feeding the inflammatory ones. Then you have the impact of chronic psychological stress, poor sleep architecture, highly sedentary behavior, and of course, the widespread overuse of antibiotics.
Taking an antibiotic is sometimes necessary, but ecologically speaking, it must be like dropping a nuclear bomb on a rainforest.
That is exactly the scale of the devastation. It wipes out the good, the bad, and everything in between. It leaves the ecosystem barren. And we have to remember our evolutionary history. Historically, human beings were constantly interacting with wildly diverse natural environments. We touched soil, we ate unwashed plants straight from the earth, we lived in close proximity to animals. We were constantly swapping microbes with the natural world.
And now we live in sterile, climate-controlled concrete boxes. We eat highly sanitized food from plastic wrappers. We use antibacterial soap 10 times a day. We have completely isolated ourselves from the biology of the planet.
We have become ecologically deprived. Our internal environment has become a fragile monoculture, very much like modern industrial farming. And just like a monoculture crop is incredibly vulnerable to disease, pests, and weather, A monoculture microbiome leaves human beings incredibly vulnerable to stress, illness, and cognitive decline.
That is a haunting image. The idea that modern biology is suffering from ecological loneliness. We are literally starving for biological connection on a microscopic level.
Mm. Ecological loneliness. That is a beautiful, if melancholy, way to phrase it. And this deprivation directly impacts how we handle the daily pressures of life. Because microbial health is not just about digestion or avoiding brain fog, it is intimately physically tied to our stress resilience.
Let's explore that connection. Does the microbiome actually change how our minds perceive and process stress?
It does, in a very measurable way. Emerging research is showing that certain bacterial strains can actually influence our cortisol signaling, which is our primary stress hormone, and help balance our autonomic nervous system. When you face a highly stressful event, whether it is a massive project deadline, a financial crisis, or a difficult emotional conversation, your body reacts instantly. But a healthy, highly diverse microbiome acts like a biological shock absorber.
So it physically buffers the blow of the stress.
Exactly. It helps regulate the inflammatory response to that psychological stress, preventing the immune system from spiraling out of control. It helps the nervous system return to a baseline of calm much faster after the threat has passed. Without that microbial buffer, your nervous system is essentially driving on a dirt road with no suspension. Every minor stressor feels like a 5-alarm fire.
That completely redefines what it means to be resilient. We usually think of resilience as just psychological grit. We think it's about toughing it out or having a strong mindset. But you are saying true resilience is actually a measure of microbial adaptability. If your gut ecosystem is fragile, your mind is going to be fragile.
That is the unavoidable biological reality. We simply cannot expect to have a resilient, high-performing, emotionally stable mind if the microscopic ecosystem supporting it is collapsing.
Okay, so we have painted a somewhat terrifying picture of modern life destroying our inner rainforest. But the beauty of any ecosystem is that it is dynamic. It can be restored. How do we actually rebuild this? If I want to engineer my microbiome for absolute peak performance and mental clarity, where do I start?
The key word there is dynamic. The microbiome responds incredibly rapidly to how we live. It is not a fixed genetic trait that you are stuck with. It is a living garden. And the single most powerful tool we have to cultivate it is what we choose to put on our plates every single day.
Let me guess. We need to talk about fiber.
Absolutely. Complex, fiber-rich whole foods are the primary fuel source for our beneficial microbes. But it is not just about eating a bowl of plain oats every morning. It is about deep plant diversity. Different microbes feed on different types of plant fibers, starches, and polyphenols. The more colorful and biologically diverse your diet is, incorporating a wide variety of vegetables, nuts, seeds, legumes, and dark fruits, the more diverse and robust your microbiome becomes.
So we need to stop thinking about food purely in terms of macronutrients. We obsess over protein, carbs, and fats, but we need to start viewing food as ecological fertilizer.
Precisely. You are feeding an ecosystem, not just a machine. We also need to reintroduce beneficial microbes directly through fermented foods. Things like high-quality kimchi, traditional sauerkraut, kefir, and kombucha. And crucially, we must recognize that it is not just about diet. Your sleep quality, your circadian rhythm, regular physical movement, and your ability to regulate psychological stress all play a massive role in maintaining this internal environment.
It is like every meal we eat, every night of sleep we get. And every time we manage our stress, we are writing a new line of code into our biological software. We are constantly programming our microbes.
What we repeatedly feed survives. What we neglect disappears. The ecosystem is perfectly, ruthlessly efficient in that way. It really is that simple and simultaneously that profound.
This makes me wonder deeply about the future of medicine and human optimization. If the gut is truly the second command center, are we going to move away from just treating localized symptoms in the brain or the body and start treating the ecosystem directly?
We are already standing on the edge of that exact frontier. The future of medicine is going to be heavily focused on precision microbiome science. Researchers and technologists are exploring highly advanced systems driven by artificial intelligence that can map your unique microbial profile with incredible accuracy.
So instead of taking a generic multivitamin or buying a random one-size-fits-all probiotic off the supermarket shelf, you get a highly personalized biological blueprint.
Exactly. We are moving toward precision nutrition tailored specifically to feed your unique microbial deficiencies. We will see the rise of targeted gut-brain therapeutics designed to treat mood disorders, anxiety, or cognitive decline not by altering brain chemistry directly, but by repairing the gut lining and reducing systemic inflammation at the source. We will start tracking inflammatory biomarkers not just as a sign that you are sick, but as a daily metric of your cognitive performance potential.
That is a massive structural paradigm shift. We are moving away from a mechanical view of the human body where you just try to fix the broken part in isolation to a deeply ecological view.
And it is about time we made that shift. To truly optimize human performance, you cannot ignore the environment within. The future of healthcare, the future of mental clarity, and the future of human longevity, it is fundamentally ecological. We have to treat the microbiome as a major performance system, not merely a digestive accessory.
It really redefines what it means to be healthy. We have spent so long thinking of mental clarity as a purely psychological state, or maybe a neurological one. But it is infinitely deeper than that. True clarity is the result of ecological stability inside the body itself.
It is a deeply important realization. The nervous system simply does not operate independently from your immunity, your metabolism, your inflammation levels, or your microbial balance. The brain is biologically downstream from the body's internal environment. When all of those underlying systems are synchronized, when the systemic inflammation drops and the neural signaling becomes clear and calm, that is when you experience true, sustained peak performance. That is true resilience.
It is a profoundly humbling thought, isn't it? Deep inside every single one of us, right at this very moment, there is an invisible civilization working continuously. Trillions of tiny lives living, interacting, and dying, and in the process, they are actively shaping our thoughts, our emotions, our daily energy, and our ability to withstand the chaos of the outside world.
It forces us to look inward with a lot more respect and awe. In modern society, we spend so much time and energy looking for the next external biohack. We want the newest wearable device, the latest supplement, the next artificial enhancement. But perhaps the highest level of human performance will not begin with artificial enhancement at all. It will begin with restoring the ancient biological intelligence that is already living within us.
The intelligence we evolved with, the ecosystem we literally are. As we bring this conversation to a close, I want to leave everyone listening with this thought. The next time you feel overwhelmed or cognitively foggy or pushed to your absolute limit by the demands of life, remember that you are not fighting that battle alone. You have an entire universe inside you, functioning as your biological shield. The only question is, are you feeding that universe or are you starving it?
That is the ultimate question we all have to answer.
Take care of your inner world and it will take care of you. Keep exploring the intelligence within.